Hello everyone and welcome to Dinky Toy Restorations, my channel for the sympathetic restoration of my favourite childhood toys. This time we have a Dinky LAGONDA Sports Coupe, based on the 1936 LAGONDA Tourer. This model was very kindly gifted to me by fellow Dinky enthusiast and railway modeller Graham Falston when he visited my railway earlier this year. If you've not come across Graham until now, be sure to visit his splendid railway YouTube channel by searching Lakeside Model Railway or click on the link above. His modelling skills are superb, so I'd better get this one right. The Dinky Toy version was advertised in June 1939 as one of a set of 6 modern sports cars numbered from 38A to 38F. Due to the imminent threat of war, the original production dates were not met, and eventually only 3 of the 6 cars were produced from June 1940. The other 3, of which number 38C is one, was not produced until after the war in 1946. I will be restoring this one to its original mid-green colour, with dark green seats and black wheels. I would describe this example as being in poor to fair condition. It has been overpainted with red and latterly a dark green, so this obviously would benefit from a new coat of paint. Kindly, Graham gave me the wheels, axles and tyres and a pair of reproduction headlamps. These look fine, although one of the original axles is bent and will need straightening. I have on order a replacement windscreen and a post-war steering wheel to finish this restoration. This should be an interesting and challenging restoration for me, so let's get started. So I have my Dremel workstation set up with a 2mm drill to drill out the 2 rivets that hold on the base plate. So now I'll remove the head of the rivet with my larger 4.5mm drill. That's it, the base plate is now free and I can remove it, and I can remove at the same time now the broken piece of the original screen. There's a little tab on it that engages in the base plate. Back to the 2mm drill in the Dremel workstation, and you can see on this drill I have some yellow tape to act as a depth guide so I don't drill too far. Time now for a clean. I hope you can see that this model is really quite dirty, and there's dirt trapped, you know, between the deep sort of recesses between the mudguards or fenders and the bonnet of the car, and there's sort of some dirt encrusted all in around there, which is not surprising seeing how old it is. So it's time to pop it in the ultrasonic bath. And I'll put the base plate alongside it. There's some fair amount of loose rust on there that I think could come off with the cleaning. So all I need for this is some hot water topped up to the max mark. And a few drops of washing up liquid, dish soap, and then we can drop the body and the base plate in and set this going. As it's quite grimy and there's lots of recesses for the dirt to be in, I'm going to give this 3 goes, so that's about 9 minutes in total. So there we are, time's up. And I can see immediately that it's not only cleaner, but it's removed some of the layers of paint. Let's now transfer it to some clean water and see how effective this cleaning has been. That's pretty remarkable. That's taken the dark green paint off which was on the surface and revealed some of the red paint. If I just rub it with my thumb, it's getting rid of, I thought it was getting rid of the red paint, but it's just skinning off that dark green paint that was on top. So that's going to make the paint stripping that much easier. And this, obviously it's got the dirt out because it's got the paint off as well. So but remember, this was only hot water and fairy liquid. Right, let's have a look at the base plate. It's got that crusted, rusty spots cleaned. So that will reduce the amount of time I need spend with the wire wool on this. Actually, it's got it back in parts there that you can just see the colour of the steel through there. Now I've used a hairdryer to make sure the body and the base plate is fully dry. The base plate I shall put aside and work on later. So the clean and dry body now needs to go into the paint stripper. Now the paint stripper I'm going to use is the ChemClean paint stripper I used last time. Literally the paint stripper I used last time, because in this bottle is the used paint stripper from the Ford Zephyr model. So I'm interested to see how many times I can use the same stripper before it exhausts. I found also that the ChemClean stripper softened the plastic of the little basket. So this time I'm just going to put the body directly into the bath and fill the ultrasonic cleaner with the used stripper until it covers the body. This has been heated up as well in a bowl of hot water to bring the temperature up, so it's quite warm. Last time it took 15 minutes to remove the paint, so I'll come back to you when the paint stripping's finished. In under a minute there was obvious signs of the stripper working. The red paint seems to be dissolving very quickly. So quickly I'll remove the body from the ultrasonic cleaner and pop it in some clean water to neutralise any stripper that is obviously on the casting. Once I've given it a swill round, I'll have a closer look. To my surprise, I found there was another layer of paint next to the bare metal. This must be the original colour. So in total, this model has had 4 different paint schemes. Now I like that. It might change my mind about the final paint finish. Anyway, you can see there's some bits of paint hanging on, but most of it has completely gone. There we are. I don't think that's bad at all for 15 minutes in the used paint stripper. I'll try and use it again, I think. I'll pop it back in the bottle, although it's looking a bit grubby now. Still a bit more to clean off in here, but I'm sure that'll all come off as well. With all the paint stripped, it's time actually just to check the casting to see if there are any imperfections. Generally, I have to say, it's quite good. One thing I did notice is there is some damage on this wing here, or fender, but it is the wing, and it's the front wing on the right hand side, and on this side there's a chunk, a small chunk but a noticeable piece of material that's been chipped out of there and is disappeared. The easiest way of fixing this is to mix up a paste of talcum powder and super glue. Now the super glue needs to be the thicker variety, not the very thin, and they can be mixed together in a small palette. I use bottle tops, and stirred and mixed and applied with cocktail sticks. And in order for it to dry instantly once you apply it, I use some accelerator. This is a zip kicker, and it just instantly dries the super glue. You can see now how the filler has built up higher than need be, so that I can now need to sort of file it back. But you can see, I hope, how the filler, this hard and very durable filler, has built up on the metal. For the rough filing I should be using needle files. This is a flat and this one's a half round for following the inside of the wheel arches. So I'll start with the flat. I need to file this right down to the metal. It'll take a little while, and I've got it at an awkward angle for the camera, so I shall do most of this off camera. Good. After much filing, sanding and polishing, I think the repair now looks pretty good. It certainly looks even on both sides. I can see the split here still, I can see it, but I can't feel it, so I think polishing back the talcum powder and the super glue mix, it makes it visible, but I'm hoping when I put some filler on it, some primer on it, that will disappear. So that's the next test, I suppose, is just to put some primer on here and give it another check. And finally I shall polish up the body as much as I can with this finest steel wool, which is 4/0, so it's very fine. So we shall see the result when this is finished. Right, Right, that's it, a bit messy, a bit of a clean up, and then I shall put some primer on. The only other repairs to do is to this axle, which is bent. But I think that can be straightened just by squeezing it hard between some pliers. It's done it a bit, but not perfect. Okay, I'm going to have to pop into the garage and get some mould grips. Okay, let's try these. The nice thing with mould grips is that they give you an enormous amount of pressure. I don't want to overdo it though. No, not enough pressure. I'm going to do this off camera because it needs an adjustment at the top of the handle. Just adjust the pressure. I think that looks pretty good. Time now to work on the base plate. As you know, I don't like to fully restore this. I like that patina that's developed over the years to be preserved, to give that sort of, you know, that feeling of its life. This isn't brand new, and I quite like this way of just remembering its playtime before it goes now into a collection. So I'm going to just take some of the wire wool and just lightly go over it, just really to remove any light rust and just to clean the surface as much as anything really, although you know this has been clean. I'm rubbing it just enough to bring up a little highlight on the text, and the last bit of the cleaning up is on the wheels. And again, I can just go over these with some wire wool just to, they are clean, but just to brighten them up a little bit with some wire wool. Well, the first coat of primer has been applied, and by and large it looks great. I'm particularly looking at the front of the car here where I put the filler, and this side where the split was looks perfect, and this side looks pretty good as well, except right on the front here I've left a little ridge of filler that's not properly sanded down, so I need to get the files out and just redo that and then respray it. At the same time that I respray, I'm going to put some primer on the headlamps. I put them in little blocks of blue tack here to hold them. I've decided to spray and paint them before I fix them to the car. So here we are with the main components ready now for the final colour coats. One thing I did forget was to mention the steering wheel. This is a post-war steering wheel for this car, and it is a reproduction one. The other thing I found, which I should have really checked earlier, but when I got the car, the axles and the wheels were separate from it, they weren't on it. And I found that there's a big difference in the two axles. If I line the axles up along one of the lines here, it'll be easier to see that they are noticeably now different sizes. This one is much shorter than that one. It's always a good idea to test fit everything before you go into the final stages of finishing, and when I offered the widest the widest length axle up to the rear wheel arches, it fits perfectly. and when I put it into the front axle position, it fits perfectly also. So when I offer the smaller one up, it neither fits in the rear axle position and it doesn't fit in the front axle position. So what I'm going to have to do is to modify this axle. The other problem I'm having is with the windshield. It fits into the body okay, but it's a little deep, and like all reproduction parts, they often need a little bit of fettling and trimming to make them fit properly. So I've had to cut away a little bit either side here so that I can get the windscreen down far enough so that it looks correct on the body, and I've had to file a little tag to get it to fit in the slot. There is a slot in the base plate which I showed you earlier, and that tag fits in it, but the angle is very strong, very tight. So what I'm going to do is to heat this and bend it slightly to ease the fit. So I've clamped it to a piece of steel which will stop the actual visible part of the screen becoming too warm and distorted, and I'm hoping to put some heat along here and just bend that. I think actually, yeah, no, I'll bend it down. Okay, so I'm just going to light this tea light. And that should produce enough heat to soften the windscreen. Okay, fingers crossed. That's really flexible now, so I'll just hold that in position. Until it hardens. Okay, so you can clearly see the bend in here. And the screen is still flat. I've pushed it in to dry fit it, and as you can see the angle's quite good there. And looking down on it, there's no distortion. I've scratched it a little bit here, but I'm going to have to polish that out. But the important thing is under here now, this bends forward. But the rivet positions are now over the base plate holes. The windscreen is located in its slot. So now let's move on and get the wheel axles sorted out. I couldn't find a tube that I could fit over the axle, but I have found a tube that is the same diameter as the axle. So all I need to do is measure off from the axle of the correct length, and then I can measure along here, mark it and cut it. The way I cut tubing is to put a scalpel blade across it, this is number 10, and just rock it backwards and forwards, keeping the pressure on. And so it cuts through. And it always makes quite a neat unsquashed cut, and a needle file I'll just dress that up with a file and open it a little bit with a needle file. In the chuck of my Dremel I've mounted half of the short axle that I can't use. The thing is, to fit this original head up back onto the wheel and axle, I need to reduce this 2mm size to just over 1 millimeter in order that it fits to the inside of the tube. perfect. That should fit inside the axle tube now, and this should fit inside. Perfect. Time now to finally choose the colour scheme. There were a limited number of colours originally for it, so I've picked the green I saw on the underside just before I did the stripping. To go with that, I'm going to paint the hubs black as they were in the earlier ones, and I'm going to paint the interior, the seats, a dark green. The green on the body has been drying for a couple of days, so it should be now ready to overpaint the silver, which I'm going to do by hand. This is Humbrol 66, I think it is. Well, it could be 99 actually. But anyway, it's a good silver, and I'm going to apply it with a fine brush. Originally, this part of the model back in the 50s would have been hand painted. Everything is now ready for the final assembly. Here we have finished and test fitted the windshield, the steering wheel and its little pin cut to size, and both axles are mounted and complete, and the wheels have their new tyres, which are 15mm smooth black tyres, and there's 2 rivets there ready to complete this restoration by touching the base plate. So before the final reveal, let me just quickly remind you of what the car looked like at the beginning of the video. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and again, as usual, please subscribe and feel free to comment. There will be more videos to come, so I will see you later.